was first set up. It was then sort of integrated into Concord as a working group. It was 2011, I think, when it was first set up, and then for the last 3 years of the campaign I was co-chair along with a colleague from Plan. Jean from CIDSE was also a co-chair for a while, and she was also part of the steering group. So the Beyond 2015 campaign, as you know, was a global campaign. We, as the European part of it, hub of it, we wanted to bring as many European NGOs as possible to join in, to have a common voice around what we wanted the EU to take to the negotiations at the UN. So what we wanted was to have a framework which addressed the root causes of poverty, of injustice, of environmental degradation. One that brought together the 3 dimensions of sustainable development: economic, environment and development. One that included governance as a key factor throughout, good governance. We wanted to slightly challenge the current economic model about everything relies on growth at the expense of people and the planet. We also felt that policy coherence for sustainable development was a very key and enabling factor, so that, in other words, looking at all of EU policies, not just what they're doing in the development segment, but looking at all EU policies, which of course all have an impact on development and sustainable development in other countries. So those were our key, I mean, we had many more, but those were our key asks, I would say, yeah. Certainly, I would say yes, in that we are actually able to track the EU position along a period of time. So we could see from the beginning, when the position was sort of quite weak and very much focused on a MDG plus type agenda, and over time we could see that it became more ambitious, it was more of a transformative agenda, that they were really focusing on a good integration of sustainable development across, that they were calling for policy coherence for sustainable development, that they even mentioned alternative measures of growth and the need to look at well-being and not just GDP. I would say one thing that we did push hard on was about participation and accountability. The EU was quite strong actually on that when it went to New York, but that was one thing that didn't really get translated into the final document as strongly as we would have liked. The thing about people participation and accountability. In the EU's position it was strong, but not necessarily ended up the global position so strongly. I think a really extraordinary factor was this universality issue, whereas finally it was agreed that, you know, all of these goals, this whole framework applied to all countries to do at home just as much as responsibility for helping to deliver it elsewhere. So I think that for us was also a very exciting factor, because clearly, you know, the EU was pushing for this strong, transformative, ambitious position, but it also has to show that it can walk the talk at home. Probably many, but I would say one, certainly for me, was when we launched our position paper, the European position paper, which was the result of hundreds of NGOs, participation, comments, ideas coming together in a position paper which we launched in, I think it was April or May, I can't quite remember, 2013. And at the launch we invited both commissioners, one for development and one for environment. At that point it was Commissioner Potocznik for environment and Commissioner Piebalgs for development. And they both came to our launch. We had a very frank roundtable discussion. Commissioner Potocznik stayed right to the end, over 2 hours. it was for me seeing, after having followed the Rio process for many years, as well as the MDG process, finally seeing, oh yes, environment and development are interdependent and have come together. For me, that felt very symbolic and very exciting. Yeah. Bringing in your members was very important across Europe. That was very significant. I would say there was a lot of, CIDSE in particular brought a lot of ideas about challenging the norms, challenging the standards, challenging the idea of the current economic paradigm, looking at and CIDSE's done a lot of work on bringing both environmental and social justice together, looking at consumption as well, and our lifestyles and what impact they have on others and on the planet. So that for me was, I would say for us, for the campaign, was a great added value. I would say one key moment must have been the papal encyclical, because that was the first time that I think that a world religious leader had actually said, look at the harm we're doing to our planet, look at our responsibility for our moral responsibility for the planet and for people who depend on it, and look at our responsibility in terms of ecological debt and social justice. So I think that was, for me, was a very significant thing, and CIDSE obviously played a large part in that.